Way back in the winter of 1959, 9 really experienced hikers went deep into the Ural Mountains. They never made it back. And what happened to them? Well, that's become one of the most chilling and just baffling unsolved mysteries of our time. Today, we're going to try to piece it together. This right here, this is the question at the very heart of it all. It's what's haunted everyone who's ever looked into this case for more than 65 years. Seriously, what could scare a team of pros so badly that running barefoot into a frozen wasteland seemed like the better option? Let's start with the facts. It all starts with this number, 9. 9 expert hikers, friends, students, all setting out for an adventure. And it's a crucial number because not a single one of them would ever come home. And this is what they ran out into. Negative 30 degrees Celsius, which is about negative 22 Fahrenheit. Just a brutal, deadly cold. And they faced it with pretty much nothing on. Okay, and here's the first clue, and maybe the weirdest one of all. Their tent was cut open, but from the inside. So whatever they were so terrified of, it wasn't trying to get in. Something made them so desperate to get out, they literally shredded their only shelter to escape. All right, let's set the scene. It's been weeks since the hikers were supposed to check in. A search party finally makes it to this remote mountainside, a mountain the local Mansi people called Kola Chahol, which translates to Dead Mountain. Yeah, a pretty chilling name, as it turns out. The scene that the search party found was just silent chaos. All their stuff, food, warm clothes, their skis, all of it was just left behind. The only footprints leading away belonged to them, and some of them were just wearing socks. There were no signs of a fight, no evidence of anyone else being there at all, just pure, absolute panic. So you have to wonder, who were these 9 people? Were they just some inexperienced kids who got in over their heads? Well, the answer to that question only makes this whole thing even stranger. Not even close. This group, led by a really capable guy named Igor Dyatlov, they were all highly skilled, certified hikers. I mean, this trip was tough, for sure, but it was nothing they couldn't handle. The key thing to remember is that these were not people who would panic over nothing. So let's just walk through the timeline. Everything seemed totally normal, right up until the very end. You can see in their diaries and photos from those last few days, they're all in great spirits, just laughing and working together. And then on the night of February 2nd, something went horribly, horribly wrong. So now let's get to the search itself. Finding the hikers was a really grim job, and it happened in 2 completely separate and terrifying stages that honestly just created more questions than answers. Okay, so the first 5 bodies were found scattered around. 2 guys, nearly naked, were found by a dead fire under a big tree. 3 others, including Dyatlov himself, were found frozen solid, like they were in the middle of trying to get back to the tent. At this point, the official cause of death looked tragic, but simple: hypothermia. But that was not the end of the story, not by a long shot. The search went on, and what they found 2 months later, buried under feet of snow, is what turned this tragedy into a truly terrifying mystery. The last 4 hikers changed everything. Their injuries were unbelievable. We're talking massive internal damage, crushed ribs, fractured skulls, but with almost no external wounds. The coroner actually said the force was like being hit by a car. One of the women was missing her tongue, and as if that wasn't enough, some of their clothes were radioactive. So what in the world happened out there? With evidence this bizarre, this contradictory, the theories started flying, and they ranged from the kind of plausible to the straight-up paranormal. Let's take a look at the big ones. The first, and for a very long time, the official theory was a simple avalanche. The idea is that a big wall of snow just slammed into their tent, they had to cut their way out, and then they ran for their lives into the darkness. On the surface, it sounds like it could make sense. But the thing is, when you actually look closer, the avalanche theory starts to fall apart. The tent was damaged, yeah, but it wasn't buried in snow. The slope they were on wasn't even that steep, not really avalanche country. And most importantly, how does an avalanche cause those specific, brutal internal injuries? And how does it make their clothes radioactive? It just doesn't add up. So that leads us to a much more sinister theory, that the hikers were just in the wrong place at the absolute wrong time and stumbled right into the middle of a secret Soviet weapons test. Now, this one actually fits some of the weirdest evidence pretty well. It would explain the strange orange lights that other people reported seeing in the sky that night. Some kind of concussive blast could definitely cause those car crash injuries without leaving marks, and it would for sure explain the radiation. But there's no official record of any tests, and you have to ask, why would the military just leave the bodies there to be found? And of course, people have come up with all sorts of other ideas. A wild animal attack? Nope, no tracks. An attack by local tribes? No signs of a struggle. And then, you get into the wilder stuff, with people blaming everything from aliens to a Russian Yeti. But those are dismissed pretty quickly because there's just zero evidence. So, after decades of official silence, where are we now? The case was shut down super fast back in 1959, but the questions, they never went away. And that led you a pretty surprising development just a few years ago. In 2019, believe it or not, the Russian government reopened the case. And their final, official conclusion? A slab avalanche. Now, this is a very specific type of avalanche where a solid plate of snow slides down. They argued that this could have created enough focused force to cause those terrible injuries, but for a lot of people, it still doesn't feel right. Because, even if you buy the whole slab avalanche idea, it leaves the most concrete piece of forensic evidence totally unexplained. Where did the radiation come from? And what about those injuries? The coroners were crystal clear. Massive force, but no bruises on the outside. That's a medical puzzle that a big, crushing force like an avalanche just doesn't seem to solve. And finally, we're left with this single most disturbing, most bizarre detail of the entire case. Could it have been an animal after she died? Maybe, but in a mystery that has absolutely no easy answers, it's the final, haunting question mark. Making sure that the full truth of what happened on Dead Mountain stays buried in the snow.